guys. Welcome back to Your Mindset, Your Power. Very often in my life, I have felt behind. Behind in where I thought I should be. Behind in my career. Behind in figuring things out. And if you're feeling that right now, my friend, I want you to know you're not alone. Because many of us quietly carry this feeling, right? Wondering if we are late, if we missed something, if we should be farther along by now. So today, I want to talk openly about that, why we feel behind, and how we can free ourselves from that pressure and start seeing our path differently. So stay with me, my friend, because this conversation might be exactly what you need today. But before we go deeper, I would like to zoom in on something I've noticing more and more lately, especially in the conversations I have with people navigating big life transitions. Because the truth is, even though so many of us had felt behind at different moments in life, there is a generation right now carrying this pressure in a particularly intense way. Young adults, many in their late teens and 20s, often called Gen Zs, and the millennials now navigating their late 20s through early 40s. And surveys constantly show that most people in these groups feel strong pressure to reach certain milestones on a timeline, figure out a career, becoming financially stable, building relationships, knowing what's next. Some call this milestone anxiety. That quiet sense that you should already have things figured out. And let me tell you, my friend, in my work, I see this very, very often. Young adults I speak with sometimes share how overwhelming it can feel to be surrounded by conversations about plans, job offers, next steps, especially around big transitions like graduation. And there's this unspoken expectation that by a certain point, you should have a clear answer when someone asks, "So what's next for you?" And when that clarity isn't there yet, it can easily turn into the feeling of being behind. And underneath all of this is something many of us absorbed without even realizing it. An invisible timeline. That idea that life is supposed to unfold in a certain order. Graduate in your early 20s. Have your career path set by your mid-20s. Build financial stability soon after. Settle into long-term relationships or marriage by your late 20s or early 30s. And feel established not long after that. It sounds familiar, right? Because many of us grew up with this narrative, even if it was never said directly. But the truth is, my friend, that timeline is not a rule. And if you have been quietly measuring yourself against that invisible timeline, it may be time to let it go. Because the version many of us absorbed, that idea that life should unfold in a fixed order, or a certain pace, comes from a different time, a different context that is outdated. It doesn't reflect how life actually unfolds today. And it certainly doesn't define your worth or your direction. Feeling uncertain doesn't mean you're behind. It often simply means you're still finding your way. You are in your own timeline. And that's a very human place to be. And part of what makes this pressure feel even heavier today is the world we are living in. We are constantly exposed to other people's life, right? Their milestones, their progress, their moments of celebrations. And don't get me wrong, while those moments can be inspiring, they can also quietly pull us into comparison. Because it's very easy to forget that what we see is only a snapshot, not a full story or a full picture. We see the promotion, but not the years of uncertainty. We see the engagement, but not the doubts along the way. We see the new opportunity, but not the fears behind the decision. And without even realizing it, we can start comparing our everyday reality to someone else's highlight moments. And for younger generations, especially those who have grown up with social media as a constant part of daily life, comparison is almost always present. It's not just something that happens occasionally. No, my friend, it's part of how they stay connected. They learn how they see what others are doing. And when you are already navigating questions about direction or identity, being surrounded by updates people choose to share can intensify that quiet question: am I where I'm supposed to be? And there is also something subtle that happens during transitions, especially after years spent in very structured environments like high school, middle school, because in those schools, progress feels clear. There is a clear path. You are told how you're doing. You know what comes next. It's very predictable, right? But once you step into adulthood, the path becomes far less defined. There isn't one timeline. And yet, many of you still carry the expectation that progress should feel clear and steady. When it doesn't, it can feel very unsettling. So, between the invisible timeline, the constant pull of comparison, and the shift that structured path to open-ended ones, it's no surprise that milestone anxiety feels so real, right? Not because you're doing something wrong, but because you're navigating a world that constantly invites you to measure yourself against others. And when I talk about all this, my friend, I'm not speaking only from theory, I'm speaking also from my own life. Because when I talk about timelines, I have also lived my own and sometimes unexpected ones. Because my life did not unfold the way I imagined. No. Growing up, I thought I would go straight to college after high school, build a career in broadcasting, and follow a clear path. But life had other plans for me. I married very young, at 20. At the time, I truly didn't understand what real love meant and what it meant to choose a partner with intention. No. As a result, I put parts of my life and my career on hold. I found myself in a relationship that was difficult and at times deeply misaligned with who I was becoming. Eventually, that chapter ended, and I had to begin again. Not where I expected, but where I actually was. I graduated in broadcasting later than I thought I would at 27. Later, I remarried in my early 30s. I became a mother at 35. And decades later, I stepped into something I never could have predicted: becoming a mindset coach, starting a business, launching this podcast. And if you had asked me years ago whether this would be my path, I would have said, no way. But today, I can see something very clearly. Every turn, every setback, every difficult season shaped me. Even the moments that felt confusing or painful were quietly preparing me. They taught me resilience. They deepened my empathy. They helped me understand people and life in a way I couldn't have never learned otherwise. And most importantly, they led me to a life that feels aligned, to find my person, to becoming a mother, to discovering purpose, to connecting with people like I'm doing with you right now. None of it was linear. None of it followed a perfect timeline, but it was mine, my own unique timeline. And listen, I've met so many people who, in many ways, are far ahead of me. And that's okay, because I'm not trying to leave their path and focus on mine, learning, growing, planting seeds, showing up, even when progress feels quiet. And let me tell you, my friend, there is something deeply rewarding about building a life slowly, intentionally, one step at a time. And also about appreciating the connections, the growth, and the meaning that unfold along the way. So looking back, I don't see delays. I see preparation. So if you're feeling behind right now, I really do understand you, my friend. And maybe the question becomes, what can you actually do when this feeling shows up? Because feeling behind isn't something you solve overnight, no. But there are ways to relate to it differently. Let's talk about those ways. And one of the most important things is simply becoming aware of when comparison is happening. I know we have talked about comparison, but that moment when you catch yourself measuring your life against someone else's highlight reel, yep, be aware of that one, my friend, because the feeling of being behind almost always comes from looking at where others stand instead of noticing how far you have come. And awareness gives you a choice, and choice is always your power. You might also take a moment to reflect on your relationship with social media. It can be such a meaningful space, right? A place to connect, learn, share ideas, feel inspired. And at the same time, it's worth paying attention to how it impacts your perspective and how it makes you feel about your own life. Because we are often seeing the moments people choose to share, the highlights, the progress, the celebration, not the full picture, right? Behind the scenes. So it can be very helpful to gently ask yourself, who leaves me feeling encouraged? And who leaves me feeling pressured? Sometimes that awareness simply means being more intentional, choosing what you engage with, taking breaks when needed, or balancing your time online with moments that help you feel grounded, like going for a walk, having a real conversation, or simply slowing down. Using social media consciously allows it to support your growth rather than shape how you measure yourself. So be aware. And when everything feels overwhelming, come back to small steps, my friend. What I'm saying is focusing on micro wins instead of big wins, because big goals can feel heavy when you believe you're behind. Yes. So instead of focusing on the entire mountain, focus on the next step. If you're feeling stuck in your career, maybe today's step is sending one email, updating one page of your resume, learning one new skill. Progress happens through small, consistent movement. Just one step, repeated over time. And gratitude, my friend, can be a powerful anchor here. Not as a way to ignore challenges, but as a way to see clearly. For example, at the end of the day, you might ask, what did I do today that moved my life forward? Even slightly. 1% is all it takes. Maybe you initiated a conversation even when you were feeling nervous. Maybe you kept going on a date that felt heavy or got out of your comfort zone to do something that is unfamiliar to do. Because when you acknowledge those moments, you shift your focus from what's missing to what's growing. And growth, my friend, often begins the moment we step slightly beyond what feels familiar. And another way that can also help is to focus on shorter cycles. Instead of thinking years ahead, choose one intention for the next 90 days. Something meaningful, something doable. Track your actions, not your results. Because results unfold over time. But effort is something you can honor today, my friend. And remember, so much of the work we do is invisible. The thinking, the learning, the showing up, the quiet persistence, all matters, even when no one sees it. And finally, something I deeply believe, my friend, confidence doesn't come before action. It grows because of action. Psychologist Dr. Julie Smith explains confidence develops when you're willing to start, even when you are unsure, and learn along the way. It's built through trying, adjusting, and keep going. So you just don't have to feel ready. You just need to begin. And a little action creates momentum, and momentum creates progress. And as we begin to close today, my friend, excuse me, I want to speak to you directly and clearly. If you have been feeling behind, pause for a moment. Take a breath. You're not late, my friend. You're living a life that is unfolding in real time with challenges, growth, and learning that cannot be rushed. Most people are figuring this out far more quietly than it appears. Even those who seem certain are navigating their own challenges, their own paths. If you take one step each day, you create movement. Over time, those small steps create steady, meaningful change. Progress is not a deadline, my friend, it's direction. So instead of asking, why am I behind? You might gently ask, what is this season teaching me? And very often, the answer reveals that you have been growing in ways that aren't immediately visible. Seeds have been planted, and growth is happening, even when you can't yet see the full picture. Life will always carry uncertainty. Plans shift. Your journey evolve. Unexpected turns appear. But one of the most powerful things you can do is stay present with where you are and keep moving with intention, one step at a time. Be gentle with yourself, my friend. Release the pressure you match someone else's timeline. And recognize the courage it takes to keep showing up for your own life. It's not about perfection. It's about consistency, learning, becoming. I believe in you, my beautiful friend. And wherever you are on your path, keep going. Your timing is not wrong. It's yours. It's allowed to unfold in your own way. Thanks for being here, my friend. Thanks for sharing. And as always, remember, your mindset is not just what you think, it's where your power begins. Have an awesome week. Love you guys.